All right, ready to go for another week here on the. I guess we're still calling this the Prime Sports Horse Report. It still sounds good, even though it's once again on the Prime Sports Network YouTube channel with Jon Hardoon and Chad Summers, who's the man of the hour. How's it going, gentlemen?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I've done the show for a year. I've never heard it called the Prime Sports Horse Report before.
I know. That's what we used to call it. Do you remember that, John?
Yes, I do.
That's when we were doing podcasts, radio shows. I had a website. Now it's all YouTube. So, Chad, great job.
Yes.
Both of you guys, by the way, did a great job. Matter of fact, John hit exactas in all three races we did last week. Chad, of course, had the big hit in the Belmont with Arcangelo. You guys deserve a round of applause. And I know there's a lot of viewers out there who appreciate your efforts. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, you know what? I tell you what. Let's first of all talk about some of those comments. Cesar Alvarez.
That's my man.
Actually, we're going to get to Cesar has some questions that were not regarding.
That's the one Cesar that doesn't get stabbed in the back. That's my man, Cesar.
Let's go to I want to start with the questions from Belmont. First, Rockface. The boss does it again. Congrats, Chad. And then he actually sent another comment. I bet Arcangelo at fixed odds of 18-1 on Saturday morning in Europe. Thank you, Chad. I had a bad day betting, but you saved me big time. So that's Rockface. Mr. Guitar 2010. The advantage of seeing the horse work personally proved great. Congratulations, Chad. And
look, there's a lot to that. I've been saying that for a long time, Greg. I mean, look, I think the sheets are a great tool. I think that watching race replays is fantastic. But there's nothing like watching horses, especially if you get to know them. Arcangelo's been at Belmont for 6 weeks. Got a chance to really get to know him and watch him train. Sometimes horses just kind of tout themselves. And the one thing I've learned, and John, you're a lifetime track guy, you'll get a kick out of this. I got a lot better touts from the horses than I do from the people touting them. That's for sure.
It makes sense. By the way, congratulations to the connections. Cox had 3 horses in, Fletcher had 2, Asmussen had 1, Baffert had 1. And who comes along and wins? Jenna Antonucci. So good for her. It just shows you. And I think they paid like $35,000 for that horse, right, Chad?
Yeah, nobody wanted an Arrogate. That was the year nobody wanted an Arrogate. So
I mean, there were $1 million horses in the race and everything else, and the little guy won. And I think that's good for the game, personally.
Ironically enough, as we maybe foreshadow ahead here a little bit, we're going to cover 2 races at Monmouth today, the 10th and 12th, and both races, Sons of Arrogate might play a very favorable position. So, look, unfortunately, he passed away. Doesn't have that many foals to continue the legacy, but I think it's safe to say when you see Arrogate listed as the father of one of these horses, you got to pay attention. He's been a remarkable stallion already.
All right. As far as some of those other comments, we want to jump on here. Let's see. And you know what? This is also a good time to remind our viewers. Actually, you know what? I'm going to remind these viewers when I'm 100% positive that they're watching on YouTube, because that's for the YouTube people. Anyway, let's move on to a couple of more guys who had comments for you regarding Belmont. Michael Coase. Thank you, Chad and John, definitely for the number 3 horse winning the Belmont Stakes, plus 3 trifecta total over 300, which is going towards my Vegas trip in September to celebrate my 72nd birthday. Michael Coase.
Feel free to take us. Feel free to take us. We'd love to join you.
Have a good time.
By the way, that was on the Patreon comment board. Also on the Patreon comment board.
I've never been to Vegas, John.
I can't believe that, Chad.
Wow.
Well, you're always busy on the big days, but we can
maybe I can go for my 72nd. Maybe I can have something to look forward to for my 72nd birthday.
We can make a road trip, Chad, anytime you want.
There's no horse. Is there what kind of horse racing do they have in Vegas?
They don't have any live horse racing, but every single book you go into has every racetrack there. So
right.
Well, they got the big PBR event too. the PBR event in
They have
January, I
the
think.
rodeo place at South Point.
Yeah, yeah.
Every time I'm there, they have a rodeo, something going on.
Rodeo.
They
Patrick,
do. I'm serious. It's a big
I
thing there.
believe you. Patrick McQueen. Thanks,
Somewhere.
Chad. I hit win bet on Arcangelo and trifecta box 4 horses, Angel Empire, Arcangelo, Forte, and Tappa Trice. And I almost hit Hit Show, who was 5th. So Patrick McQueen making some money. And Chad, of course, having a lot to do with that. So Patrick wanted to let you know he appreciates your efforts, Chad. And comments that we were not able to get to last week because of the Belmont. Now, on Patreon, Cesar Alvarez, Chad, if a trainer is targeting the Bing Crosby at Del Mar, what dates, time would a trainer use as prep races leading into the race?
Well, being that the horse that's going to win the Bing Crosby's in my barn right now, let's say he's prepping in the True North Stakes on June 10th and running second behind Elite Power. Look, I thought Anarchist ran a super race with with the news coming out about Straight No Chaser being on the farm for the rest of the year. Kind of changed the dynamic of California's sprint division. So Anarchist is going to head back home. Originally, he was going to stay on the East Coast and target a race like the Vanderbilt. So he's going to go back home for the Bing Crosby. So obviously, we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll root for Anarchist and Ilium Stables and Doug O'Neill.
Okay, so that was the question. By the way, again, these questions can come from Patreon or on YouTube. Either way. Also, Caesar, by the way, wanted to know any 2-year-old or 3-year-olds we should be looking forward to this summer.
Yeah, we should look forward to on Saturday. Look, we're not going to cover this race on the air, but I'm going to give out a winner. Every now and again, you get a bingo square, whether you're playing a pick 5, a pick 4, bet whatever you want. Unless this horse falls down, he'll win the race from here to the In-N-Out Burger. Okay? His name is Miramati, named after the announcer Frank Miramati. He is Bob Baffert's best. He's Bob Baffert's best 2-year-old, and he will be the early Kentucky Derby favorite Saturday night about 9 p.m. Eastern time. Miramati is a must-watch on Saturday afternoon at Santa Anita. So we'll kick off
usually when they name horses after people, they don't turn out that good. This horse is supposed to be that good. But we'll find.
I don't know if this horse eats as much pizza as Frank Miramati, though. We have to find out if this horse likes pizza. But that'll be our first
track announcer at Santa Anita. Bob Baffert
at Saratoga.
Saratoga this year, correct.
Heavy favorite?
2 to 5.
He will be a heavy favorite. 4 to 5 on the morning line. I imagine he'll go off much shorter than that. But enjoy watching him run. His workouts are all on XBTV. I think every one of them I've watched. He's a special horse. Son into Mischief. They paid $1 million for him. No secret, but a very special horse. And I'll tell you what too. If anybody watched the Tremont on last Sunday at Belmont, Steve Asmussen had a maiden in there that got a 90 buyer. I'm not sure if we had the rag sheet number on that yet, Jonathan, but I mean, an ultra impressive horse. Looked like a 3-year-old, your early favorite for races like the Sanford opening day at Saratoga and the Hopeful as well. Really, really impressive horse. Looked really good. I almost missed my flight going to Florida to stay and watch him run, but I was glad I did. Really, really special horse.
And one more thing, we're going to move on, and that is last week I did not mention the new Patreon member that we had. His name, Jack Butler. So I want to welcome Jack Butler, our newest Patreon member, to...
Hold it. Don't you have a Brian that signed up? I know him. He's
I did send that to you, and for some reason I looked back over on the Patreon account where all the members are, and I haven't seen his name pop up yet. So I was going to hold off until I see him actually officially pop up on the screen. I'm not sure why he wasn't. So I don't know. Maybe there's an issue with the connection with the credit card. I have no idea. But as soon as he goes in there, we'll mention his name.
All right.
And by the way,
more importantly, the Butler did it.
He's a good guy.
Jack Butler, yes. And we now have 22 patrons. our goal, our first goal, we're going to have many goals. Our first goal is to reach 50. So we're at 22 right now. And I'm going to remind everybody on YouTube as
How
well.
could you not be at 50 after last week?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually a perfect time to mention that because this is for the YouTube viewers as well. And that is the fact that keep in mind, if for whatever reason you don't want to become a Patreon member, whatever the case may be, and you can still use that thanks icon to donate money to the channel. So if Chad makes you a lot of money, hit that thanks icon and you can donate as little as $2 to thank Chad and John anytime they help you make some money. So just keep that in mind for any of the YouTube viewers who don't, for whatever reason, want to become Patreon members. Not sure why they wouldn't want to.
Can I ask you a question? This is on three things. This is on YouTube, on Patreon, and on
Well,
I don't know. I'm a little confused.
Yeah, we're on. Well, if you're a Patreon member, you get the opportunity to see these shows every Thursday. And if you're not a Patreon member, you get an edited version on Saturday. So that's the difference.
$5?
And it's only $5. It's $5 a month.
It comes out to $1. It comes out to $1.25 a show.
Yes, and all you needed to was take the picks from last week, and that covers your charges for the entire year.
For at least a year.
Yes. So what we're going to do, and if Chad didn't tip you off, and if the logo on the screen didn't tip you off, we're talking Monmouth Park for the first time this year. And we have races 10 and 12 that we're going to go over. We've got a graded stakes race coming up shortly, but we're going to start with the race that is a stakes race, the Pegasus. It's a $150,000 race for 3-year-olds. This should go off about 4:45. And
look, they call this day the Haskell Preview Day. Actually, 6 stake races on the card. Should be a great day of racing over there at Monmouth Park.
14 races on the card. Chad, the weather's supposed to be okay, I assume?
I mean, look, we got scattered showers in the area, but it should be a nice day, I think.
Okay.
All right. So taking a look at this race right now, as far as the favorite, well, a couple of the favorites. You have the first, the 1 horse is a 3-1 shot. The 8 horse is an 8-5 shot.
Time out. We're doing the 10th race. Why don't you tell everyone what race number it is?
Race number 10.
Good.
The Pegasus Stakes. And race 12, by the way, will be coming up shortly. So, again, this is go off about 4:45 on Saturday. And, we'd suspect Kingsbarn is going to end up as the favorite because of the connections. Even though he didn't perform well with the Derby, he's got the Derby. They like that kind of stuff. They understand horses that go to the Derby sometimes are, there for a good reason, including the winner of the Louisiana Derby. So, John, you take a look. We'll start at Kingsbarn's because his sheet line was excellent until the Kentucky Derby. He went 15, 14, 12. And then anybody can have a bad day in a big race, a Derby race, or a Breeders' Cup race. And I think that's where a lot of people are probably looking at Kingsbarn's will probably come back to reality and be tough to beat on Saturday.
Well, it was also 1.25 miles, but remember, he had Forte running that day, and they scratched him. So I think, what do you have, 2 horses left in the race? I don't like this horse, by the way, not as the favorite. I think he was squeezed in those 2 races, and I think he's vulnerable. At 8-5, I would try to be. I mean, you could use him if you're king somewhat of a price, but I would never key off of this horse at a short price.
Louis Saez actually used to breeze this horse for Todd Pletcher. I'm not sure he ever rode him before, but gave up a day of business in Kentucky.
Yeah, he rode him in his first start at Gulfstream.
Gave up a day of business in Kentucky to come up and ride him. He was supposed to run in the Belmont Stakes and scratched, had a little bit of a fever. The problem is there's twofold. Let me address this from 2 different standpoints. The first one is if you go back and watch the Derby, and they didn't like the ride Jose Ortiz gave. I didn't think it was the worst ride I've ever seen, but he's part of that really, really early pace factor with Verifying. He lasted longer than Verifying and ended up backing up, but Verifying came back and ran a pretty good second last Sunday in the Matt win. So given that time off, you'd say, okay, you know what? It's forgivable. He was 3 for 3 going into that. The way this race sets up, he's not in front. He should have a perfect stalking trip here because I think George Duarte's horse is a little bit faster than him, and he's well drawn outside with a heady rider in Luis Saez, who's as good a rider as anybody in the country right now. However, as much as we liked Arcangelo last week because he was training so well, Kingsbarn is not trained as well. So the real reason, in my opinion, that he didn't run in the Belmont is he wasn't working very well. I thought it was the right decision at the time, but ultimately, the thing is, and the fact of the matter is, he wasn't doing that well. And okay, this is a week later. Yes, it's an easier field, it's a softer field, but at the end of the day, it's only a week. I wish there was a little bit more time. I think he's definitely the horse to beat. I think you have to use him. But I really, really think at the end of the day that he is a vulnerable favorite at 8-5. And I think he'll even be lower when everything's said and done. I think he's closer to even money than 8-5, John.
Yeah.
I agree. That's why I'm telling you. I think he's vulnerable this week as well, and I agree with everything you said, Chad. So.
All right. One of the other, top contenders I mentioned is the one Classic Catch, another Pletcher horse, and he had a really nice sheet line, especially this year, 18, 16, 11. Then he bounced to a 16 in a Peter Pan. And so I'm assuming, John, a lot of people are expecting him to revert back to form. He's got Paco Lopez, who's having an incredible meet at Monmouth at this point. What about Classic Catch? Unfortunately, he's 3-1.
Yeah, I'm going to use him. I'm king a different horse in the race, and I don't know. He's another horse in the race. He has the rail, which is an advantage there, and I don't know. He's okay. He's nothing special. This is the other Pletcher horse in the race, by the way.
Yeah.
He's got the 1 and the 8. So.
Look, I like the rider switch to Paco Lopez because he's a horse who's a little bit of a lazy horse. He needs a little bit of encouragement. But, I mean, Irad rode him last time, and Irad is equally as aggressive of a rider. So he didn't really respond to that tactic either. The horse is a nice horse. It's the right spot. Get him out of New York, running a little bit of a softer, easier field. But he's just one of those horses that hasn't shown that desire to win right now. And I think that lays into it.
All right. Let's take a look at, how about the 5? Alternate Reality as a long shot. And any other long shots that you guys might like in this race. He's trending in the right direction, 24, 16, 14. He's won his last 2 races. And he's 12-1. Do you like either that horse or any other long shots in this race?
Well, what do you consider long? You consider a 6-1 shot long?
No, not really. No.
Okay, well then the answer is no.
Okay.
I don't even like the 5. I don't think he's as good as these horses. And listen, obviously he's in the race. He has a shot. He's 12-1, and I would never talk anyone off a 12-1 shot.
Who do you think's the best bargain?
I love the 4 horse. Salute the Stars. The last time was first time for Cox. First time on the dirt. I think this horse is going to run huge. Last time was around 2 turns at Churchill, the 1 1/8. And Rosario's going to ride him for the first time from Giroux. I think that's an upgrade, even though Rosario's not having the greatest year. I love the 4 in this spot.
So you're not worried about a bounce?
No. I consider it an 11 first out. The first 2 races were on the turf. They mean nothing. And not only that, the last time was first time for Cox. So for all those reasons, I'm lending on the 4.
Chad, was that like an accidental good situation where he goes on dirt because of weather, I'm assuming, of course, and then he runs a great race, and now Cox goes, oh, wait a second, this horse should be on dirt?
Well, I think it's a learning process when you pick up a new horse, and it was a logical spot to try. He ran well, having a lot of trouble. He had a ton of trouble that day. He had kind of stuck behind the wall of horses and got out, made a late run, and really finished up well. But he also ran like a turf horse because when he made the lead, he kind of tried to pull himself up a little bit. He should have gone about his business and opened up and won by 2 or 3, and he ended up holding on and winning by a neck. In what was a relatively slow time. I know the track wasn't ideal and it was off the turf race, but he ran against a lot of turf horses. And so I'm actually against the horse. I think he's okay, and it's tough to knock a horse. You're getting Cox at 9-2, even though he doesn't do that great at Monmouth. Alternate Reality is a horse that I didn't like at all. He's seemingly gotten better over his last couple of starts. Jackie Davis seems to fit this horse well. But I love a horse that is a little bit of a price that I'm going to make my top selection in here. And it's a horse that ran the same exact day as Salute the Stars, ran 2 races later, and ran a faster race. And that's going to be the number 2 horse, Moreau. I understand it was just breaking his maiden last time out, but we've been down that path with Arcangelo when he broke his maiden and went to the Peter Pan. After the race was over, the horse was purchased, majority interest was purchased by Eclipse Thoroughbreds. They're a very, very smart group. They bought into this horse, kept him with the trainer, and nothing else changed. But they bought in when he broke his maiden. He broke his maiden at 136 going a mile in the last race on Churchill that day on May 14th, where they went the mile. I understand the race was a mile and an eighth, but they went a mile in 138 and change for Salute the Stars 2 races earlier. So I think Moreau has more of an upside. If you watch him finish out the race, he sat a perfect stalking trip, was able to run him down and pull away at the wire. I think he's the one with the bigger upside, and you're getting the bigger price because the trainer's not as known and not as much a commodity. Giroux's going to ride this one. He's certainly familiar with Salute the Stars. I'm going to take a shot on Moreau at 8-1, guys.
Comparing, and John, I get your opinion on Moreau as well, because you take a look at the 2 horses that have only raced twice. They've just broken their maiden. That's the 2, and that's the 6. Sobrogate. And Sobrogate has better sheet numbers, 15 and 11. So talk about those 2 horses, and which one do you prefer?
Well, the 6 Subrogate certainly could bounce. He only had 2 starts. He's never been 2 turns. Not that Moreau's been 2 turns. He's been a flat mile at Churchill, but his last race was a distance race. I don't know. I think they're kind of the same horses, but I guess I would lean towards the 2. He's at least 8-1, where the 6 is 5-1, and the 6 is a Jersey-based horse. Those are Jersey connections, Colts Neck Stables and George Duarte. So I think they're going to go off a lot shorter than the 2 horse, personally. But again, I like the.
But when you're talking about numbers, I think this is important because you're right, Greg. The fact is they're both lightly raced, run twice. Both of them have run well in both of their starts. But the Duarte horse is coming out of sprints. And the one thing I've always noticed about the sprinters, they seem to run lower numbers on the sheets. They're faster horses by proxy. They run lower numbers on the sheets. Would you agree with that, John? So it's tough to compare sheet for sheet when they've run different distances.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because his best race was in a sprint race. And
well, he only had 2 starts. We don't know that it was his best race to date.
That's true.
When you deal with slightly raced horses, you don't know it. Well, look, he jumped up to an 11. When you deal with 1 and 2 number horses, it doesn't mean much, personally.
And then the other horse that's a contender based on the morning line odds, 6-1, the 7 horse. How great is Nate? And interesting here, this is the only horse in the field that has won at Monmouth. And he did that last time out at this distance, and that is right after a trainer change. So this horse is 5 out of 7 lifetime.
I'm using that horse. It's one of my hookup horses.
What about this?
I think the thing that you need to know about How Great Is Nate, this is important. So trainer Elizabeth Dobles, who is an amazing, amazing horsewoman. She won a Breeders' Cup with Jeremiah Englehart with a filly named Marie Antonia a few years ago. She's been on her own for about 6 or 7 years. She does a fantastic job with the horses that she has, namely claiming horses. She's made a niche for herself, raising her kids in Florida, and doing well, training mainly for this owner, Imaginary Stables. And always Andy Simoff will have a few horses for them. Andy did really well with this horse, so it stayed with Andy for a long time. But now it's with Elizabeth, and Libby is really getting to know this horse. She decided after How Great Is Nate shipped up, scratched from allowance race the 2 days before where he was the 4-5 favorite in allowance race to run in the Long Branch last time out at Monmouth. It was the right decision. The horse won and earned an all-expense trip to the Haskell. Entries paid. The plan was for the horse to go back to Florida to rejoin her string. Because of this horse, because of their desire to try and take down the Haskell, she decided to, rather than go back to Florida, she brought 12 horses up and is now staying at Monmouth. So she actually is really banking on how great is Nate and some of these other horses, turf horses and stuff like that with Gulfstream closing, and putting her best foot forward. And I think it speaks volumes for a trainer who doesn't have 30, 40, 50 horses. Jenna Antonucci, the same thing. She shipped up for the Peter Pan and stayed. And that was a huge advantage for Arcangelo to train over this track every single day for the 6 weeks leading into the Belmont. For Libby to leave her home, leave her home cooked meals and everything else, to go to Monmouth, to bring horses with her for this horse, speaks volumes to me. And I think she really, really likes this horse. And he's a horse that I would definitely use in all the exotic and trifecta things. I don't know that this is necessarily going to be his peak performance. I think he ran really good in the Long Branch. I think this is a stepping stone now to the Haskell, a learning experience, mind you, and try and really get him to peak on Haskell Day. But he's definitely a must use. And I think you should never sleep on trainer Elizabeth Dobles.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be the 7, but there's going to be another one of these horses outside of the 2 long shots that is going to end up with better odds than what we're seeing on the morning line. And hopefully it's one of the horses, obviously, we go with. I'm going to go 5, 7, 8 exacta. John, your top horse is going to be the 4, correct?
Correct. And I'm using the 1 and 7 underneath.
Chad, you're going to go with the 2, Moreau?
2 on top of the 7-8.
7-8. Awesome. All right. So that's race number 10 at Monmouth. Now we're going to go to a graded stakes race at Monmouth, the 12th. This should go off about an hour later at around 5:40 on Saturday. 1 mile race, the Salvator Mile. And it's a grade 3 for 3-year-olds and up. Taking a look at this one, the one horse is we could even start at the 1. I like the 1, right, John? I mean,
I love the 1.
Petulante.
Yep.
Got 2 8s this year, both at 1 mile, both wins. And
that's around 1 turn. Now this is 2 turns, a mile and a mile, 2 turns. But I think this horse is going to be fine. This is another arrogant horse, by the way, who Chad was talking about. And he has a big advantage breaking from the rail here. And you can listen, if you really get 9-2, you're getting Louis Sayers. He rode him the last 2 times. He's 2 for 2 at the distance. I mean, he's never worked at Monmouth or run at Monmouth. That's the only problem, but I still like this horse. If you get anywhere near 9-2, head to the windows.
By the way, Chad, is this possible we're going to have like 6 or 7 of these horses that want to set the pace?
In this race?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that Petulante needs the lead. I think he's fast enough.
Petulante's not going to the lead here. He's not getting the lead in this race.
I think there are horses in this race that are fast, but it's not. It's interesting. So the one thing that you have to take in mind when you're looking at a race and you're handicapping a race, you can't just look at numbers and say, okay, this horse at the first quarter, half mile, 1-1-1, 1-1-1, 1-1-1. Okay, they all need the lead. So when I grew up going to the races with my dad, you would mark your program, FR, front runner, CTP, close to pace, mid-pack, closer, whatever. And you look, okay, maybe their running style says front runner, but when you look within the fractions of what most of these horses are, they're not really that fast. Empty Tomb, if he's in front early on in the race, will be out the back at the end of the race. Arturus is a horse who showed speed early on, then he didn't know what he was doing. Now he's coming off a layoff, so there's a lot of questions on that. It's one of those things, and really, Nimitz Class, who could be anything, he makes the lead because it's just come so naturally for him. He's just naturally a forward horse. He doesn't go very fast early on, and he's able to just kind of maintain a high cruising speed. So to answer your question, there are a number of horses who could be close to the pace, but I don't think any of them really need the lead, which is very interesting and unique when you're looking at a race and handicapping a race in this situation. In regards to the one horse, I believe this is why Luis Saez is coming to Monmouth on Saturday. He rides a lot of live horses in all the races. We talked about Kingsbarn. I don't know that Kingsbarn was committed to this race early on. I think this was a late addition of coming into this race. I think Louis wanted to follow this horse because if you watch his races, the last two in Gulfstream and then at Churchill on Derby Day, man, the sky is the limit for this horse. This horse is just continuing to get better. He looked King Ottoman in the eye and was probably passed on Derby Day, and he just dug in and dug in and dug in and would not be defeated. Now, I wish he had a little bit more time. It's just 7 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever you want to look at it. It's a week after the Belmont. He ran really, really hard that day. But this horse can be anything. I was not planning on going to Monmouth on Saturday. I got plenty of stuff to do here in New York. I might go to Monmouth on Saturday to watch this horse run because this horse might be one that we're going to hear a lot from later on this year and especially down the road next year, especially if he can stretch that speed out a little bit and go races like a mile and eighth, maybe in Saudi Arabia.
You can watch it on TV. You don't have to drive 2 hours, but okay.
There's nothing like seeing it in person, though, right, Chad?
Well, it's just it's just different. There's a lot of things you can watch on TV, but it's just one of those things. I would imagine I'll probably be there.
All right.
Wow.
So, hey, right off the bat, we're all in favor of the one. But let's take a look at the rest of the card. Now, what about the favorite? You mentioned one of the favorites, Ortorius, the 3-1 shot, the 9 horse. Is this just about, John, maybe a horse that doesn't like Keeneland? And if that's the case, then this is going to be a dangerous horse to beat. Chad Brown, Giroux, that's the best combo in the field. But he's only 3-1.
Well, I don't know. Listen, whatever happened to him in that race resulted in a layoff, right? I don't know if it had anything to do with Keelan. Maybe he got hurt in the race. Maybe Chad knows. I don't know. But at 3-1, I don't want him. I mean, isn't the 8 Nimitz class much faster than the 9? Even the 6 Octane, I mean, at 10-1. These are horses you're supposed to use with the 1. But I don't. I mean, the 9, it's Chad Brown. Obviously, he's hitting at 40% there, so his horses always run. But that being said, there's no value in that horse.
Look, when you talk about Artros, I call him Miley Cyrus because he came in like a wrecking ball. Okay, his first couple of races were outstanding. He was at one time people said he was going to win the Travers. He won the Curlin, which was the prep for the Travers. He was really, really impressive. Here's the problem: even though he won the Curlin going a mile and an eighth, this horse doesn't want to go that far. The Travers did him in, and the Perryville was the knockout blow. It was like that Mortal Kombat finish him. He was wiped out. I mean, when you talk about a horse who was exhausted after the Travers, we were in that race with Cyberknife, so obviously paid very close attention to some of the horses in that race. He wasn't training good going into the race. He came out of it not great and then ran in the Perryville. He's better than the last 2 races suggest. Yeah. I think going back to a mile, running at Monmouth on a track that'll help him along is good. But Chad Brown's horses off the layoff in dirt races are not as impressive. He's great at getting his turf horses ready because to get a turf horse ready off a layoff, you only have to be about 80-85% ready. The turf will carry you the rest of the way. On the dirt, you have to be 120% ready. So I would imagine this horse might need a race off the bench. We saw it with Zandon in the Westchester. Came back, ran well in the Met Mile. I would think it'll be more of the same here. I do look to see bigger and better things from this horse. You're going to think I'm crazy right now. And I probably am. And there's probably no 2 better horses in the country right now than Elite Power and Cody's Wish. I want to see Arturus running the Forgo at the end of Saratoga. He is going to be that kind of a horse, but I think he might need one off the bench. I think he's a 1-turn, 7/8 mile horse. I don't think he's a 2-turn horse, but we'll see. I do think he runs a much better race, but there's no value at 3-1. So I have no problem with somebody trying to beat him. I think he'll move forward from this race.
What about that other top contender John mentioned, Nimitz Class? First of all, John, your take on Nimitz Class, who ran those 2 6s earlier this year, including in a 1 mile race at Laurel. First time at Monmouth, but you got to be impressed. Even though these are considered like the minor league tracks he's been on mostly.
Yeah, but he's earned 464,000 in these minor league tracks.
He's dominated them. Yeah,
they're doing something right. I mean, he's heavily raced. He has 16 starts already. That seems like a lot, But listen, he keeps firing numbers. He's fine. I picked the 1 because I thought the 1 had the advantage of breaking from the rail. That's why I gave a slight edge to the 1. But I could see if the 8 won, it would be no shock, not to me.
What about the 8 horse, Chad?
Listen, look, Nimitz Class is he's a cool horse. Full disclosure, I tried to buy him a month ago. He was being pointed for the Pimlico Special. He's a really, really, really cool horse. He trains at Penn National. The guy named Bruce Kravitz, Javen Toledo rides him all the time and loves him. He's special. He might be doing it at the minor league tracks, but it's how he does it. He just cruises. He's got a really, really high cruising speed and just sees it through and just keeps going. I mean, he's what you want on a racehorse. As Jonathan said, he runs 16 times. He's just a really, really cool horse. He skipped the Pimlico Special because they thought the race was coming up too tough, which in hindsight, I really don't think it did. There were a lot of horses that didn't enter that thought they were going to. He showed up on the following Monday at Parks in a money allowance race, and he won as easily as the public workout as he possibly could, just playing with the horses in an allowance race. I like this spot. It's back a little quick. It's back, I think, in 3 weeks, a little bit less than 3 weeks from that last race. But that last race wasn't a race. He just showed up.
It was a workout.
He literally
a workout.
Yeah, it was just a public workout. He is a cool horse.
By the
this
way,
is a great race to find out.
He goes for his 6th.
This is a great race to find out who he is and who he's going to be the rest of his career. Will he just be a Mid-Atlantic hero, or is he a legitimate Breeders' Cup kind of horse? That's what makes this race so exciting and why it's worth the price of the ferry to get over to Monmouth Park.
All right, let's take a look at a few other horses. You mentioned one of them, John, the 6 horse Octane, a 10-1 shot. Very consistent sheet numbers over most of his career, especially since last year. A lot of 10s, 11s, 12s. He's got 3 10s this year, coming off a win, pretty much a wire-to-wire win at Gulfstream. So what about Octane at 10-1?
He's fine at 10-1. I'm using him. Not only that, he's been training there. It looks like Carlos David brought a string to Monmouth from Gulfstream. Chad would know better, but this horse has a couple of works.
Yeah, he's training. He took over the majority of the horses for Ron Lombardi and Mr. Amore Stables. So he actually has Frenze Amore, Frenze Fire's brother.
Oh, really?
His sister, November Rain. He picked up a bunch of horses. Yeah, but I think at some point you just get tired of the hat. Look, at the end of the day, my problem with Octane, and I'm shocked at you, Jonathan, because you're the number one person. You and your son notice this stat more than anybody. Octane's races, his bad races, have one thing in common: no Lasix. No Lasix in the race on Saturday. I'm completely against Octane. Every bad race he ever ran in his life was no Lasix.
Well, the only reason I'm using him is because he's 10-1. So, but I agree with you. He's obviously the Lasix horse. I mean, Lasix certainly helps him. Let's put it that way.
Chad, when Bourbonic last time out went on turf, was that like a desperate move by Pletcher?
You know, I don't know what's going on in that Pletcher barn right now. They had a horse named Fearless. That's a 1.5 mile horse that they ran in a sprint. This horse they ran on the turf. I don't know. I don't know what is going on in that barn right now. I am staying as far away from Bourbonic as if I was an underage kid at a watering hole. No shot for me. I'm way against Bourbonic.
Off the figures, he has no shot, Greg. I mean, you're looking at it.
Sure.
Why would you? Yeah. All right. More horses you want?
Last place I'd ever want to run at is Monmouth Park. the last place I want to run at is Monmouth Park with his running style.
Any good bargains in the field? Octane, is that the best bargain, or you got another good bargain?
No.
Either
What's wrong with taking the one at 9-2? Isn't
that's
that
not a bargain. Come
that's
on,
not a bargain?
give me a bargain like 8-1, 10-1, 12-1.
I'd rather collect with a $10 horse than bet a
I'm
10
not
to 1.
telling you
That's
not
not
to
gonna
take the
work.
one. I'm saying,
Okay.
is there a bargain in the field?
No, I think using the 1 over the 6 and 8 are your bargains. You can reverse them if you want, but I like 1 with 6. Yeah, 1 with 6 and 8.
Chad, any bargains?
I mean, if you're looking for the Notting Hill DVD in the Walmart movie section, I'll say at 5-1, riding with Biden. I think he'll drift up. His race last time was the Pegasus against Art Collector and Cyberknife, and Julia Leperoux fit this horse as well as Donald Trump fits riding with Biden. It just wasn't a mix made in heaven. Paco Lopez has a lot of success on this horse for Butch Reed. It's a little bit of an aggressive spot back off the bench, but he's a horse that could factor in the minor awards, and I think he drifts from the 5-1. So if I'm looking at the $5 DVD collection, I'll use Riding with Biden underneath, but I much prefer horses like the 1 and the 8 are truest as well.
I have a personal against the two races back at Parks. He beat me out of a major score, so me and him are not friends.
By the way, what happened to Bourbon calling as soon as he made the switch to the new trainer, Antonio Arriaga? How do you pronounce his last name?
Arriaga.
Yeah. He won 3 straight, ran a 12, 8, and 11. But then last time out in a grade 3, he laid an egg, 7-year-old. Any chance for Bourbon calling or trademark another 15-1 shot to do anything here?
Not for me. Chad,
I was a big trademark fan, but I was a big trademark fan, but his last 2 races, I mean, I got to have my head examined if I pick him again. If he beats me, he beats me. But yeah, I mean, and picks up the services of Joel Rosario for some reason. I'm not exactly sure. But I guess he's there, best jock in the room. But he's shown nothing from 3 to 4. Unfortunately, he's been a real disappointment this year.
And Far Mo Power, the 10-1 shot to 4, has been a favorite in 3 of the last 4 races. Ran a 9 in January, ran a 7 last September. But you guys not interested in Far Mo Power?
Not for me. Chad?
No, I mean he's been favored in allowance races at Parks. This is a different caliber of horse. He's outclassed here.
And Empty Tomb, 8-1, the 7-year-old.
Out of all the horses you mentioned, I mean, but I don't even like him, to be honest with you. I don't care for him. I mean,
ran at 8 in March.
Here. You have horses that are fast.
Yeah, trainer Robert Falcone seemed to find the magic potion over the last few months. His horses are running much better. He's 40% on Monmouth and hitting the board 85% of the time. So you have to pay attention. But I don't think he's anywhere near the numbers. Let me explain something to you. When you talk about horses like you're talking about and shopping for window dropping, for bargains. I mean, you can go to Marshalls if you want, but everyone's gonna know you got your clothes at Marshalls. At the end of the day, you got Saks Fifth Avenue horses here. You gotta appreciate what they have.
That's the whole point.
Sometimes it doesn't pay.
Greg,
sometimes it doesn't pay.
Great point here. Sometimes you got to take what you got, and sometimes they're and it's not like you're getting the
just appreciate.
You're still betting the horses that have
Yeah, there are times when you can be against the favorite. There are times where you can be in a situation where, you want to try and make some money. You think it's a vulnerable race. There are times like this. This is a serious group of horses here with 2 or 3 of them have the possibility where their ceiling is just way, way, way up high. And everybody else that you mentioned as far as the longer priced horses, they've already topped out over their ceiling. They're downsizing. Their kids are out in college, and they look like they're trying to just kind of go into a 1-bedroom apartment at this stage. I don't see them reversing form on some of these horses that, I mean, I'm telling you, if 1 or 2 or 3 of these horses end up in the Breeders' Cup, I'm not surprised. That's how good of a race this is, guys.
Yeah, keep
I'm
in mind,
with you,
Empty Tomb, the last 3 times he went single digits on the sheets. The second race after that was an 18, an 18, and a 19. So
Well, you're answering your own question.
all right. So again, Chad, is your top pick going to be the one as well?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jonathan. I'm going to make him my top selection, but it's very, very close with Nimitz Class. And then underneath, I want Chad Brown's horse, Arturus. I think Arturus will continue to get better, but I think he might need one off the bench.
1 over 8 and 9. John's going 1 over 6 and 8. By the way, race number 10, John went 4 over 1 and 7. Chad took 2 over 7 and 8. And that's going to wrap it up. So what are we doing next week? How's the card look next week? Next week is what, the 24th? Looks like we have let's see, what do we have? Wow,
you got
not
all
a
the
lot.
Royal Ascot. All Royal Ascot, wave your American flags.
No sheets
Royal
for
Ascot
Royal
next week.
Yeah.
You're on your own, boys.
Yeah, we got to start
Ascot.
talking. Yeah, we got to start updating everybody on those big races over at England. But yeah, the races, you got Belmont, you got Churchill, you got Gulfstream, but I don't see any graded stakes races.
Churchill. There's Ellis Park. There is no Churchill. Churchill moved to Ellis because of the track condition, which is totally safe.
Oh, it's one of those Belmont BAQ kind of deals?
Yeah, it's Churchill at Ellis.
Churchill at Ellis. Okay, I like it. Yeah, okay.
Don't worry. Hey, they're already trying to sell us Saratoga. Going to run the Belmont Stakes 2025. Everybody's excited. I don't know who everybody is. Because if they think that we're going to go to Saratoga for 4 months, they got another thing coming for them.
What is that about?
It's another story for another
they're going to be doing construction.
They're only going to be there for a week, I thought, Chad. Aren't they going to be at Aqueduct and then just come here for that?
Who freaking knows? Somebody had a picture of a map for the Belmont Stakes where they would start, and they're like, "Oh yeah, they're going to start at the harness track."
Yeah, on Union Avenue.
Make their way around.
I saw that also.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Stay safe and be
Appreciate
well.
it.
Chad, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Greg. Bye.
You got it.